Hello, coaches! Welcome back to another episode of Coach Better Spotlight. Today, Clint and I are chatting about a question we received in our Coach Better Facebook group. How do you find the balance between listening and explaining? We were also able to connect this question to another from the group about how to inspire growth rather than give advice. As coaches, we're always walking a fine line between uncovering a teacher's experience and knowledge and sharing our own advice and strategies. In this Spotlight episode, we talk about the power of a good question and the purpose of silence and reflection in our coaching conversations. In the full podcast, we also discuss the challenges of managing these deeper conversations with our chronically time-poor colleagues and how we can tailor our work as coaches to the needs of each teacher we work with. For coaches looking to master a deep, reflective coaching conversation with all its pauses and opportunities for reflection, this episode is for you. If you enjoy any part of this video, please give it a thumbs up. And if you'd like to see more conversations like this, please subscribe to our channel and click the notifications bell to find out every time we release a new episode. Remember, you can also listen to the full Coach Better episode wherever you get your podcasts. Before we start today's episode, I wanted to let you know that our open registration for the Coach Microcredential starts this week. We would love to have you join us. Registration is open until April 12th, and we will close cohorts as soon as they fill. So we don't want you to miss your chance to join this year's cohort, since we only open them once a year. Stay tuned to the end of today's video to find out what our current participants are saying and to learn how to register for the coach. Welcome back to another episode of Coach Better. Today, Clint and I are going to be addressing a question that we got in our Facebook group. It's actually two questions we're putting together because we think they kind of match really nicely. And the two questions are, how do you find the balance between listening and explaining? How do you give space for the person you're coaching to come to their own conclusions without that space being empty? That's kind of the first question. And then the second question was, I'm always curious about how to go about inspiring growth rather than giving advice or directions. So we're going to kind of merge those two together and have a conversation about our strategies in coaching to kind of help inspire growth rather than direct learning. So Clint, do you want to start us off and tell us your initial thoughts about finding that balance between listening and explaining, or the balance between inspiring growth rather than giving advice?
Well, I think that question about the balance between listening and explaining, I think that is sort of that magic. That's that magic area that everybody in a coaching position, or if you're ever in a coaching role, either officially or unofficially, is striving for. And unfortunately, I don't know if there's ever really that one right answer that always works, right? I think it's really being aware and empathetic with the person that you're speaking with, and having an understanding, a really good understanding of what their background is. And sometimes there's a lot of, for lack of a better word, I'm going to say baggage that comes into a conversation that, you know, when you have a really strong relationship with a professional relationship with that person, you're quicker to pick up on some of those things that they aren't saying as much as what they are saying. And it really helps you to know when to just kind of let them talk and let them just kind of puzzle it out themselves with a few kind of prompting questions. And when they really are searching for advice, and when they are really searching for, even if it's not the right direction, sometimes I find it's helpful just to kind of put some ideas out there so that they go, no, that's not what I'm saying at all. Like, that doesn't work. Mm. What I really mean is this. But you're kind of helping to jumpstart their thinking for them, or not for them, but with them. And I think, you know, finding that balance, you know, inspiring growth and giving advice too, I think it's really knowing that person. And I think maybe sometimes as a podcast, we're a bit of a broken record because it's all about relationships. And we say that over and over and over again, but I don't think you can emphasize it enough. How you go about cultivating that relationship or leveraging that relationship, I mean, that's part of the individualness of each coach and what makes each person in that coaching role unique and special in what they do. But ultimately, the work that we do is about people, with people, about people. The products are people and our students, and the resources are people because those are the teachers who are helping, So, I mean, those personal relationships are going to certainly be that key.
I totally agree. And I have been thinking actually a lot about this question since we decided we were going to talk about this. And then I've had like a number of conversations with people that I'm currently coaching in a virtual context like this. So one of the other things that I do as part of Eduro is I coach other coaches and school leaders and teachers who have professional goals they want to work towards. And I've had a number of people recently sign up, just like totally random, people that I don't know, that I have no personal connection with.
Right.
And I've had that experience again of like, okay, well, how do you find this relationship? How do you build this rapport? And on top of that, how do you do it in a setting like this where we're not even in the same room? I've never met you in person. We have no shared context to work from. It's just this like screen. So this question has really been percolating in my mind over the last couple of weeks. And I think you talked about this idea of how you know when you can allow them to puzzle something out rather than directly offer suggestions. And to me, I think that comes back to the importance of the questions that you're asking and how carefully you think about the questions that you ask, which also connects me to another conversation we had as part of this podcast, which may or may not be airing before this one, I'm not sure. But we had a great conversation with Lynn Sawyer, who's worked with cognitive coaching since the very, very beginning. And that conversation reminded me of I don't even know how to say it, the like grace and like smoothness that all experienced cognitive coaches can ask questions. Like just the way they phrase their questions is so beautiful. So from that conversation and these varied experiences I've been having coaching people in a virtual setting, it's really reminding me the importance of the way you ask the question and then the follow-up question you ask after that. Because who doesn't want someone to be genuinely listening to them? So if you're asking a genuine question and you are genuinely curious about what the answer to that is, and you are 100% on their side to help them solve that problem, it's okay if sometimes there's quiet because you're thinking about what potentially that person has inside of them to kind of help them get to that next step.
And thinking about that conversation with Lynn, what always strikes me is you're talking about the grace. It's almost the invitational qualities, which I think are practiced, right? As someone who is schooled in the dark arts of cognitive coaching, maybe it's the light arts of cognitive coaching. I think those are things that are really practiced. And I know when I first encountered cognitive coaching or people who were learning to be or practicing their cognitive coaching abilities, you're like, oh my goodness, sometimes this feels really contrived or forced. But I think that's that because they're in that practicing phase, right? And how do they find their own voice within that invitational concept of questioning, and how they're asking these questions that really get you thinking. And some of them are, you don't realize it, but they're not letting you kind of just say, I don't know. Oh, I don't know the answer to that. Like one of my colleagues who I speak with, they will often say, but if you did know, what do you think it might be? And I'm just like, I love that question, but it makes me so frustrated when you say things like that because you're not letting me just go, oh, I don't know. I need to think about that. Yeah, but if you did know, like, think about it right now. Let's have this conversation. And it's really kind of, I feel like it's kind of forcing the issue, but in a caring and loving way. And that's one of those, like, it's pushing, but it's not pushing to tell me the answer. It's just pushing for me to give it the thought that it requires, And so then that gets into that. I'm listening and I'm pushing back so that I can listen some more. I'm not listening so that I can tell you what you should have said, or, and sometimes I know you have conversations with the people and really their body language is just tell me the answer.
Yes.
And that's again, where I think you really have to have that understanding of that person to know, like, no, I'm not going to just tell you the answer. I'm going to just keep asking you some questions, or I'm going to keep, challenging you in a cognitively conflicting way, so that you'll be like, oh yeah, that helps me come to this realization. but then also knowing like, okay, they're about to blow their top. Let me just maybe cut this off a little bit short because I know like I might be pushing my luck. Sometimes I feel that way when I'm dealing with my own children. You keep asking them these questions, and then when my daughter's like, Dad, I'm like, okay, let me just tell you the answer. And I'm just trying to find her limits. But I think sometimes it's that same idea of like knowing how far to push and then when to pull back and when to say, okay, I'm going to throw you an idea. I'm not saying it's the right idea. Or sometimes they're like, what do you want me to do? I need direction. Mm-hmm. And that's and when that gets to that point, I feel like it's a completely different relationship as well. Now it's not a coaching relationship. It's maybe it's like I'm a principal and I just need you to tell me, or, I'm a principal and I'm talking to the teacher and that teacher just needs me to tell them what they need to do. Like, okay, that's a supervisory type thing. That's not a personal growth or professional growth type conversation. And it's really reading that room.
You said like 10 things I want to go back to, but I think one thing that I really resonate with me is that part about I'm listening and I'm pushing back so I can listen some more. And that connects to the question about how do you allow people to come to their own conclusions without that space being empty. And I think it's maybe less about worrying about the space being empty, but more about finding the right question so that they have something to say. And the question that you said was like, but if you did know, what do you think it might be? Like just finding that right question to tease the next thought out of them. And it might not be the answer, whatever that they're looking for, but the next like level of thinking. If you have the right question, it's not always about, they're not going to be able to necessarily come to a conclusion on their own. That's why they're seeking out coaching. That's why they're working with you. So it's about finding the right question to get them to be able to say more things. And then you can listen and find the next right question.
In the design thinking methodology, right, in process, they talk about like the asking why 5 times. And really it's almost like that line of questioning is like trying to help them understand sometimes what they feel is the concern or the challenge is only the surface level. And maybe, like we can address it at the surface level, or I feel like that invitational questioning is really helping to get down to really the root cause of what some of these challenges might be. And you got me thinking about that space being empty. And I just wrote down on my little whiteboard here, like empty spaces, it can be awkward. Some people see that as awkward, or you can see that as actually that empty space is the room to grow. If you don't have that empty space, there is no room to grow. So how are you even providing that empty space on purpose so that people can have that space, that mental space to grow and to think and to come to some of those conclusions?
Did you enjoy today's episode? Then you will love the Coach Microcredential program. We know because our current participants are always sharing their feedback with us, and we ask them to share their experiences with you. Each week, we'll be sharing a new voice from inside the cohort of the coach so you can get a participant's perspective on what will make the program just right for you.
Although I have a lot of experience, what is really great is having someone outside of your school that you can discuss issues with and just have a valued friend, I suppose, who also can make connections for you, even though sometimes it's really hard to see the forest for the trees. And that's been what has been really valuable. Kim is there to be a trusted friend, a mentor, a valued colleague, so it's great to join the course. So do it, and you won't regret it. Yeah, you'll really enjoy it. It's a valuable experience.
This is just one of the voices from our current The Coach cohort. Here's what a few others have to say.
I'd really advise anyone interested in taking the coach to take the plunge and go for it.
So I highly recommend it.
So I say go for it. Definitely take the coach. I couldn't recommend it more.
But overall, this course is fantastic because it's made me feel awesome. It's made me feel excited for my future.
If I were to give any piece of advice or message to future cohort members, it is to take the course. If you are on the fence, please take it.
As you can see, this micro-credential is for all educators, not just coaches, because you develop the coaching skills you can use in all aspects of your practice. You don't have to be a coach to have a coaching conversation with a student, a fellow colleague, a school leader, or even a parent. When you're ready to learn more about the coach, click on the link below or reach out to us at Eduro Learning on any of our social media platforms. Registration for our next cohort opens soon. Don't miss it. Expand your professional learning network, dive deep into 26 weeks of curated coaching content, and get your own private mentor for an entire academic year. We can't wait to work with you. Are you ready to take your coaching skills to the next level? Join the next cohort of The Coach and make it happen.